Go.
July 9th, 1974, the Rangers signed an agreement to train in Long Beach. 18 Rangers made their home in Long Beach. One of those 18 never left Long Beach, the great Pete Stemkowski. Pete, what are your memories of living in Long Beach and training in Long Beach back in the 70s?
Well, thank you for using that word great. You know, that's not thrown at me too often, and I think one of the reasons why I never left Long Beach, every time I wanted to leave, the bridge was up. That was our excuse all the time when we showed up, you know, home late for dinner, living here. Couldn't get home on time because the bridge was always up. But it's been a great experience for me. I came here in the early 70s. I didn't know Long Beach from Timbuktu. I was picked up at LaGuardia Airport by a fellow named Steve Bernhind, who lived here in Long Beach, and they took me to a restaurant in the city, El Vagabondos, which a lot of people might know. It's got a bocce court. It's between 1st and 2nd and 62nd Street, so that's a little plug for them. And I ended up going there for dinner and then hopping in a car and coming from Manhattan. My first taste of Long Beach was from LaGuardia to a restaurant in the city to living in Long Beach. That was in the early 70s, so we're talking almost 40 years ago. I arrived in Long Beach not knowing anything about this place, and 40 years later I call Long Beach my home.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, we have some pedestrians for the stemmer.
All right.
My two fans.
One of the instrumental people in bringing the Rangers to Long Beach was the man that ran the Long Beach Recreational Center for 47 years, Bob Carroll. Bob, talk about bringing the Rangers to Long Beach.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be up here with the Stemmer and go back over 40 years ago when the Rangers came to Long Beach. It was fantastic. They played in the ice arena and they had practice sessions where they invited the general public to come in and observe them playing hockey. We went to a lot of the Ranger games. Prior to the Rangers coming to Long Beach, we had the Rovers before them. The Rovers were a minor league hockey team that were affiliated with the Rangers, and everybody had a wonderful time watching them, especially when Emil Francis. Emil was involved in the community in all activities, and we had a wonderful rapport with the players and the people in the city of Long Beach. So it was a great run for the city, and it was a great run for the Rangers. We were sorry to see them leave, but that's what happens in professional hockey.
Pete, let's talk about the players. I mean, you had a great group of teammates. You had the great goalies, Villemure and Jacquemin. You had the great line of Hadfield, the gag line, Rattel and Gilbert. You were great. You scored that unbelievable overtime goal. Talk about the Rangers here in Long Beach. What are some of the hangouts? What are some of the great places you guys used to love to hang out after practice, the Rangers?
Well, Howie, I want to thank you. You called me great twice. And it seems strange that here in August, 90-degree temperatures and we're talking about hockey, so that's always great. Long Beach has always been Ranger country, and you know, I know the Islanders are the Long Island, and a lot of people are Islander fans, and I always say, even friends of mine who are Islander fans, as long as you're hockey fans, and to me that's the most important. But when we came here, most of us lived here. A couple lived in the city. Rod Gilbert lived in the city, and I think Bob Nevin lived in the city, but we all had homes here. A lot of us rented in Atlantic Beach, where a lot of the summer people came and packed up. Went to the city in the fall. We moved in. A lot of people lived in Long Beach here, so you know, we got to know. I know so many people in Long Beach here. Besides Bob, him and I go back. We've broken bread together, things like that. But Seatown down in the West End, and there used to be a place called Mariners Haven at the bottom of the bridge, Deep Six, and all these great places. We had our watering holes. We're young athletes, of course. I talked about the digs down the street. We used to call that the office, and we ever wanted to meet anybody, that's where we went. So. In all the years I have been here, I pretty well know everybody, or everybody seems to know me, because everywhere I go somebody says, "Hi Pete," and I look, I go, I don't really know that person, but it's a very, very warm community. Everybody knows each other. If there's a problem here, somebody has an illness, we stick together. So this is the city by the sea, and there's no greater place to be here in the summertime, and you know, it's a lot of energy here in the wintertime also.
Yeah, well, they're gonna
Talk about
Great
Shines
job,
Bar.
Pete, yeah!
Rumor has it that the
Shines.
great legendary Shines has been in Long Beach for 99 years. The Rangers loved Shines Bar.
Well, we used to go in there, you know, every so often, because the things with Shines, and I don't want to overemphasize, but after a game, we would enjoy an adult beverage or two. So we used to go. Mike Delora used to own Shines. Shines. In fact, Shines is still here in Long Beach. They never really had a kitchen. If you wanted something to eat, the bartender would say, hold it. He'd run to the back and throw a burger on for you. But I think one of the great stories was when Gump Worsley was living here in Long Beach. He told his wife that there was no women allowed in Shines. No women allowed, so the guys would always go there. So one Sunday afternoon, the Rangers were on the road, and Gump Worsley's wife ran out of cash. No ATMs at that time, right? So one of the other girls said, why don't you go to Shines and write a check, and Mike Delory, the owner, he'll be happy to cash it for you. And she looked, Doreen, who was Gump Worsley's wife, looked at the other woman and said, but Gump told me there was no women allowed in that place. So she suddenly got the message that that's where Gump was hanging out, no women allowed, which actually was a fallacy. So, there's a million stories with hockey players here in Long Beach.
Bob Carroll, you had a great relationship with the great Ranger coach, Emil Francis. There's a great story about you, Emil Francis, and Emil Francis' wife. Tell the story about you and Emil Francis.
Well, believe it or not, Emil Francis, his wife, was called to him, and they lived right down the street from the ice arena in Long Beach. So Emil would call me into his office and say, Bob, I'd like you to do me a favor tonight. Would you pick up Em and bring her into the garden as he has to do some business? And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. And then I had to call up my wife and say, guess what? You're going to the Ranger game tonight at Madison Square Garden, and we're going to be leaving in about a half an hour. Well, I had 3 young children, so she wasn't too happy with that. She had to get a babysitter, but we always managed to pick up Em's wife, and of course we called them M&M's at the time, and we'd go into the garden and watch the games. We enjoyed the games tremendously because Emil always got us great seats, and we were big Ranger fans before the Rangers even came to Long Beach. But it was always a great time, and they were great people. And when Emil left Long Beach, and his wife, I believe now, they're down in Florida, but we still get Christmas cards from him. Great man as well, and his wife was a great, great person, and we miss him very, very much. Thank you, and it's really appreciated.
Pete Stemkowski. In sports, a great athlete is known by the defining moment. Your defining moment was one of the truly magical overtime goals in Ranger history. Talk about that magical goal and your place in Ranger history.
Well, I think that every athlete who reaches the highest pinnacle in this particular sport, whether it be the World Series or the Super Bowl in football, in my case it's the Stanley Cup in hockey. So, I'm proud of the career that I did have, 15 years in the NHL, and I'm still not. I can still walk, a little bit of a limp, and I got some aches and pains, and only my dentist knows for sure whether these teeth are real or not. But I had a Stanley Cup, which I was able to get back in 1967 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but. The triple overtime goal back, people still come up to me, I believe it was April 21st, 1971. People come up to me and say, God, I was here, and it was a school night, and my parents wouldn't let me watch the game, so I had the transistor in my ear underneath the covers. But a lot of people say, describe the goal. Well, it was around midnight, triple overtime, and I say, people who didn't see it, who did not see it or hear it, I tell them it was an end-to-end rush. I deked the goalie, split to the fence, put the top corner, but in effect, Tim Horton shot the puck in, and I happened to be in the right spot, right time. We won the game, and I do remember winning that game triple overtime. By the time we showered, did what we had to do, we got back to Long Beach here at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm grateful for that happening to me on that particular time, and I'm really thrilled when people still today come up and say they remember that goal. So that makes me feel very, very good.
Go Stammer, go Rangers!
That was and talk about some of your teammates. Jean Rattel, Rod Gilbert, Eddie Jockman. You played Brad Park. You guys really had a great team, legendary team back in the day with the Rangers.
Well, the big problem is we didn't win. Came close in '72, but some guy, what's his name? Bobby Orr, I believe, was able to beat us at Madison Square Garden and carry the cup around the garden. So we weren't too crazy about that, having somebody else win the Stanley Cup on our ice. But when you got 20 people on a hockey team, you got 20 different personalities. And we had the likes of Derek Sanderson, who I'm sure Bob has a couple of stories to tell about him, renting cars and not delivering it back on time. And Eddie Jockman was a class guy too. Eddie never got unnerved. Here's a goalkeeper. If it's a bad goal, smile, laugh it off. First guy at practice, last guy to leave. Gilles Villemure was here. We used to go to Roosevelt Raceway. A bunch of us from Long Beach go over there, have dinner, do the horses kind of thing. Gilles Marat, we used to have this Hummer, the car he drove, no muffler on it. We used to call it the Batmobile. So we had Greg Polis, used to be a guy who used to work out all the time. Back in the rec center here in Long Beach, we had our dressing room and where we skated. Then there was the weight room where you had to go around the swimming pool into the weight room. And I remember one day Greg Polis was walking there, and one of the guys was walking with him. He was still half dressed, and somebody just pushed him into the swimming pool, and a big semi-riot broke out after that. I'm sure Bob heard about that. So 20 different people, 20 different personalities, great bunch of guys I played with back then.
One thing I was always curious about is that when you have a teammate you play with several years, you develop a bond. And back in the day, your biggest rival was the Bruins, and there was no doubt, there was no love lost. They hated you, you hated them. And then Emile Francis and Harry Sinden pulled maybe one of the biggest trades in hockey history, Rattel and Park for Esposito and Vadnais. So all of a sudden, two guys you loved going to the rivals and two guys you hated were teammates. What was the reaction of the Ranger players to that blockbuster trade?
Well, let me tell you something, Howie. There's a little bit of trivia there. There was another guy involved in that trade.
Joe Zanussi.
There you go. You got it. You got it. I was in Oakland at the time, and there's this 3-hour time difference, obviously, from California to New York, and I'm in my room and the phone rings about 8:30 in the morning California time, and there's a fellow from, I believe it was Ottawa, Ontario, Canada calling and identifying himself, and he says to me, so what do you think of the trade? Now it's 8:30 in the morning out there. I'm just, he basically woke me up. I goes, what are you talking about? And he said, well, here's the trade. He named the players that were involved, and I thought it was a joke at first, and then the word got around, and we went down to the coffee shop, and I always remember there was Brad, and there was Sean. We're all sitting around, kind of giving each other a hug, goodbye, so long, and they took off. And I believe it was either that night or the next night we played the Oakland Seals out there, and here come Phil Esposito, the savior, and that's when he joined the New York Rangers.
That was an unbelievable trade, and I still remember, Park and Orr playing together. They only played together 10 games, and then Bobby Orr's knee gave out. Yeah. But that was great. But Phil Esposito had a good run for the Rangers.
Well, Phil's a unique individual. I think every person that ever played hockey should meet Phil Esposito. A tremendous competitor, certainly a Hall of Famer, a good sense of humor, character, and I think that's one of the things that's missing in pro sports now. You don't have those real funny, crazy guys, but we used to talk to Phil like he was a little old lady. Phil was either, if we were standing here right now, it's too hot. If we went across the street, it would be too cold. In our locker room, it was too drafty. It was always something, there was always something wrong with Phil, but I respect his ability. I played against Phil Esposito for a number of years. He won a couple of cups in Boston, and he came here and he wanted to kind of change the mentality of the New York Rangers. He didn't see the point of us living in Long Beach, going into the city to play, so he rented a place here in Long Beach and decided to give it a try. And you know what, Howie, after about a year or so, he says, I like it here. I like Long Beach, and he ended up buying a house here the rest of his time. He actually lived in Long Beach, wanted to stay in Long Beach, then other things happened. He got fired, and now he's living down in, I believe, in Tampa Bay, Florida.
Bob Carroll, talk about Long Beach embracing the Rangers still to this day, that Long Beach still has a warm feeling, and really Long Beach loves the Rangers, still to this day.
And I think they always will, Howie. We were all Ranger fans, as I said, prior to the Rangers coming to Long Beach because of the New York Rovers who played their games before the Rangers at Madison Square Garden. As the Rangers, we got to know them all because they all lived down here. The majority of them lived down here, and they had an equipment manager who were all very friendly with Jimmy Young. I think Jimmy passed away a few years ago. He was a great guy. He pushed the Rangers to come out and meet the fans all the time. And the fans were, the majority of them were females waiting for the players to come out. They'd all be out in the parking lot in their cars waiting for signatures and autographs and pictures and so on. But the Rangers and Emile Francis, they always reciprocated with the fans here in Long Beach and from all over Long Island. And we had a great time when they were here, and hopefully they had a great time with the people from Long Beach.
Pete, I want to hear a really great story about the Rangers here in Long Beach.
Well, Bob Carroll makes some good points that, a lot of the guys stayed here in the winter, then they took off. But I was the guy, the mainstay that stayed here year round. I mean, I ended up marrying a girl from this area, and so this became home for me. But I remember a great story once. Stanley Fleischman was a high official here. He owned a car company here in Long Beach, and about a month prior, he comes up to me and he goes, "Pete, listen, we're going to have a cocktail fundraising for the Long Beach Hospital. It's going to be above the Long Beach Arena where we train. I'd love the team to show up. We're going to advertise it. We're going to get some great contributions. It's going to help the hospital," right? So I says, "Well, you know, what can I do, Stan?" He says, "Well, try to get the guys to show up that night." So this is prior, a month or so, like I said. So I go to the guys in the locker room. I says, "Guys, circle, I don't know, February 3rd on your calendar. It's 7 to 10 at night. We're going to have this cocktail party. It's going to help the city of Long Beach and, in particular, the hospital." Everybody goes, "Yeah, you know, you'll say yes to anything a month from now." Well, lo and behold, the day before, Stanley Fleischman comes up to me and says, "Listen, you know, the whole thing is tomorrow night." You know, so I go to the guys, and they're going, come on. We just got off a road trip. My wife won't let me go. She's upset. Another guy says, "I have other plans." So I'm finding out that about 18 out of the 20 guys aren't going to show up. Now, Stanley's going crazy. I said, "Stan, I'm going to go back in that locker room and I'm going to get on my hands and knees and make sure these guys show up." So I go in the room, I say, "Guys, listen, we live here. These people are really nice to us. They support us. We've got to go to this fundraiser." I says, "Guys, I will owe each and every one of you guys a lunch or whatever you want. Just show up for a spell." And I don't know, I guess I must be a good used car salesman or something, because almost pretty well all of them showed up that night. You couldn't get more people into that room. We raised the money for the city of Long Beach, and I certainly, one person that was particularly happy was Stanley Fleischman. So that's always a very vivid memory for me, going way back to the early 70s.
All right, thank you very much. Pete Stepkowski, ladies and
Go,
gentlemen.
Pete!
Stemmer, Bob Carroll, Long Beach legend, 47 years on the rec. President of the Lions Club.
Halftime Howie.
There you go. Oh, does anyone have a digital camera? Anyone have a digital camera?
Yes.
Is that, you have digital?
Yep.
All right.